Phones or picture taking will be permitted from the audience at any time. The audience will only be permitted to applaud following the question and answer period. The audience is banned from any material that bears the name or symbol of a competing university. And we ask the audience to exit the room immediately following the question and answer period. Competitors, you may begin when you are ready.
Imagine it's 8:40 a.m. on a Monday morning and you come to work with a cup of coffee. As you sit down to check your email, you get 100 notifications from employees who are concerned and confused about the new strategy that your firm's deployed in regards to focusing on young families for marketing your real estate development project. Now, 10 minutes later, you get a call from your CFO who says the development costs are expected to be higher than they were originally accounted for, and that your firm should expect gross margins to fall by more than 50% than they are today. Now, you realize you actually didn't need a cup of coffee to wake up, because you just got a wake-up call. And as you sit there and reflect on the situation, what Teague, Vivian, and myself, JD, are really here to emphasize is that by focusing on building connections with the original target market of young professionals, focusing on really emphasizing a culture of technology and MIS amongst your employees, your firm would be able to achieve profitability and prosperity as a leading real estate development firm in Western Canada.
Thank you very much, JD. And now I'd like to take you through our executive summary for today. We will be outlining some of the problems that are currently facing your company, such as a changing demographic, your IT not keeping up, as well as low IT adoption amongst your employees. So let's start with the opportunity that's facing you right now. Right now, in Vancouver, housing market prices are actually higher than the national average. It's a huge opportunity for your company to actually capitalize on this and be able to make a healthy margin from your developments. At the same time, there's a lot of young professionals in Vancouver looking for housing. There's not enough rental units around. Overall, it's a very healthy opportunity for you. So what exactly is the problem facing your company? Well, first of all, you're not really attracting the demographic that you have set out to attract. This is Bob Boy. Bob Boy is a young professional. He emphasizes on high-end decor, and he wants the convenience of being near a public transportation. He's looking for about 600 to 800 square foot, and his price range is around 300 to 500,000. Tivoli Gardens, your development, suits exactly his needs. Well, that's great, but what's really going on right now? Well, you have only spent about 90,000 in market research overall, and only 90,000, less than the price of the single unit to get to understand your customers. And your showroom, therefore, is attracting the wrong demographic. It's attracting families who are actually looking for the mid-range housing as opposed to the high-end market you're operating in. What this means is that you are not able to maximize your margins as originally intended. The second issue facing your company is the lack of collaborative functions in your IT as of right now. You're using a myriad of communications, emails, BBM, text. There's so many options, but what this leads to is communication everywhere. There's breakdowns. At the same time, your volume communication ranges from 20 a day to 200 a day. It's very hard, very volatile. And you also have multiple stakeholders such as the people in the municipal government, the construction team, and your project management team within your development. Right now, you are employing Easy Projects, which is a great project management tool. It has a lot of the things that you actually need to make sure that your company is managing your development well. However, it lacks a chat room function. What this leads to is exactly as I discussed above, a myriad of communication that prohibits your collaborative efforts amongst your stakeholders. And these breakdown in communication cause unnecessary delays and inefficiencies, and that's actually costing you a lot. In fact, we have estimated that it costs about 5 working days per year per employee in these communication breakdowns, which is significant. And thirdly, low IT adoption. There was weak training to start, and the top tone is not really communicating to your employees that they need to embrace IT. they started relapsing back to their old ways of relying on Word and Excel as soon as times got tough. And what that means is manual change, errors, wasted time searching for files, lost files, in fact. And these mean that your company isn't really ready to take on higher complexity projects that might bring you more margin.
Now, when looking at choosing your technology, as Vivian has outlined already, we like the Easy Projects functionality that you've gone with in the past. It's user-friendly, it's familiar, and it's already in place, so you don't have to spend any additional money to have additional applications. However, you're lacking that group chat option. So we want a group chat option to work as a complement to Easy Projects to eliminate all these texts, emails, facts that are all over the place, so you can centralize your information so that you can find contracts and time-sensitive documents when you need to find them. As well, we want to have a focus on mobile here so that when your employees are out and about on the go, they can communicate with each other easily, all in one place so that they can find it at the end of the day. So looking at some alternatives, our criteria involve that it needs to be secure. This is very sensitive information and you don't want it to get into the hands of just anyone, so security is of utmost importance. It needs to enable compliance, keeping these documents with city codes and engineers, as well as having this scalable so that you can have all of these documents, but then find them as you're facing growth as well. It needs to be effective and user-friendly because, as I understand it, you have quite a blue-collar workforce, and as they've proven in the past, they can be a little bit resistant to change. So you need to have something that's very easy to use for them and intuitive so that they can really adopt this technology and become friends with it. Fourthly, it needs to enable efficiency so that you can have this information flow back and forth really easily. It needs to be timely because this is quite a time-sensitive project, as we understand. And finally, it needs to be financially feasible, as any business decision needs to be. So looking at some alternatives, we could stay with the status quo, which is definitely an option, as well as just having standard naming conventions so that you can find files more easily as they come up. You can have a Dropbox, which is also an option. Quite easy for your employees to drop all of their files into a single Dropbox and leave them there, something that they could pick up quite easily. And you've outlined a lot of different alternatives as for group application software for us, but we've narrowed it down to 3 of our top favorites just for ease of our criteria. So the ones we like best are Slack, Wrike, and Atlassian HipChat. So now going into this, with the status quo and using naming conventions, we don't find that it's very secure. You have very sensitive information, and by having it all over the place, you don't really know who's accessing it and who has been looking at it or where your information is. So we don't think it's very secure. As well, it doesn't enable compliance because as your organization will be growing, it's very difficult to find these files, especially if they're named in all kinds of different formats. We do like that it's user-friendly and effective because your employees are already familiar with the program. However, it just doesn't enable efficiency. So even though it's timely and financially feasible, we don't like this option. Secondly, we have Dropbox, which we do think is secure. However, all of your files will be in one central place, which will make it very difficult to find contracts and sensitive documents that you need when you are meeting with city planners or engineers. So we don't like this option either. So looking into Slack next, we do like that it's secure, it enables compliance, it's user-friendly and effective. However, it doesn't allow you to capture documents easily. So when you're looking back through Slack, it's hard to find the documents that you're looking for. So as a result of this, we have narrowed this out as an option. And finally, last with Wrike, we like that it's secure and enables compliance. However, it doesn't have the group chat option, so it's very close to meeting all of your demands, but because the group chat is something that you want to focus on so much, this is out as well. Leading us to our final alternative, which is Atlassian HipChat, which we believe is secure, enables compliance, is effective and user-friendly, enables efficiency, and is timely. And bonus, it's the lowest cost option. So that is the option we're recommending today.
So as Teeks highlighted, it's really important for your company to leverage the technologies that you have in regards to the project management piece, but at the same time introducing Atlassian HipChat to allow employees across the entire company to communicate on a daily basis. Looking at the marketing alternatives, the second question that your company was considering was whether or not to focus on its current target market of young professionals or potentially focus on young families. And what our consultancy is really here to emphasize is that young professionals would allow your company to not have to redevelop or redesign the projects that you have for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. And also there would be less internal communication required. Right now, if you were to switch to focusing on young families, for example, the internal communication amongst employees would increase by 50%, which we feel would be very overwhelming given the lack of technological infrastructure in place. And also, looking at the NPV of both projects, we've calculated that NPV for the young professional option will be $19.2 million for your company over a potential 6-year period, given that all 3 phases are completed in that time frame. Whereas the NPV, by focusing on young families, would be close to about half of that. We can get into those calculations in detail in the Q&A period. Looking at the marketing recommendation, however, if you were to continue focusing on young professionals, it's quite clear that you need to do something differently in order to actually attract individuals who are in the 25 to 40-year-old range to actually want to purchase the real estate that you've been developing for the past little while. We would like to recommend to your company to focus on Oculus Rift, which is essentially a 3D technology that would allow individuals to come to a showroom, try on the Oculus Rift hardware and software, and actually experience what a room would look like in regards to potentially purchasing an apartment in one of the 3 complexes that your firm decides to build. This would require your firm to have 2 hardware sets at the actual displays within the showrooms that you have for each one of the 3 phases. And then most importantly, outsource any sort of customized software development to ensure that the experience is customized to your company and not to another company.
So which brings us to our next issue of how do you incentivize your employees to use IT? Because in the past, you've brought in a system and they didn't really adopt it. But we figured that is because you didn't have the 4 pillars of change management. And those 4 pillars are to assess the unique needs of the company, which for your company is very blue-collar workers who tend to be a little bit more stubborn when it comes to technology, as well as creating a sense of urgency to adopt this technology now and really get it online. And thirdly, to get top management support. So having your boss telling you what to do is definitely a very important motivator in the workforce. So that's something we definitely want to focus on, as well as involving every layer. So what creating a sense of urgency looks like to us is holding a meeting right away so you can communicate to your employees why exactly this is important and why it will allow them to do their job more effectively, as well as the company as a whole to take on bigger projects so that you're not overwhelmed by all of the documents coming in. For getting top management support, we want to have supervisors create a sense of accountability towards their employees so that when they are not uploading things into the system, that they will be reprimanded for that. And we want to ensure that supervisors know this right away so that they can start disciplining early on so that it becomes a culture of accountability so that everyone is uploading their documents. And with involving every layer, we want to create an expectation that everyone in the company will be uploading their documents and being very responsible with their data, as well as holding a 4-hour training session so they can really become comfortable with technology. While we feel that it is very user-friendly and intuitive, having this 4-hour training session will get everyone on the same board so that they're all comfortable with the technology, see other people using it successfully, which will allow everyone to have success. And as well as providing ongoing support for these employees so that they never feel overwhelmed or left behind. Finally, easing some employees' concern. Change management is always a difficult thing when using any IT systems, so we just want to have some sample quotations of what your employees maybe could have some objections to. They could say, oh, but Excel and text are working just fine. To which your company could respond, well, as the company grows, so does our demand to be organized. So that as you're taking on bigger projects, you can now do this effectively and everyone can do their job better because it's organized. And this will, allow everyone to do their job more easily and effectively, and everyone likes that at the end of the day. Your employees could also be saying, oh, but you didn't expect me to do this last time you implemented an IT system. Which is true, but this time your company is going to be holding employees accountable so that when they aren't being responsible with their data and putting it into the system, they will be reprimanded for that by their supervisors. And you're expected to use it and you will be talked to your boss if you're not using it, creating this culture of accountability. And they might say, this seems unnecessarily complicated, as people tend to have that attitude with technology, even though that's maybe not true at all. But in reality, the systems that we recommended are very easy to use and intuitive, and the payoffs for them as individual employees far outweigh the benefits, as well as to the company as a whole. So really by communicating these benefits, we feel that they'll get on board. And finally, by telling them that we believe in you, that's always a powerful statement. So looking at a showroom experience with the Oculus Rift, which we're very, very excited about, by the way. Customers could come into the showroom, they'd place on the headset, visualizing the stunning views that Vancouver has to offer, as well as sophisticated furniture and appliances. So that even though they're just looking at a showroom and that might not be completed yet, they can visualize exactly what it's going to look like, which will incentivize them to buy. So even though you have a different demographic looking at your showrooms currently, we really feel that this will put young professionals, get them excited for your buildings and get them motivated to buy. So looking at an implementation timeline, we want to, in the first phase, purchase Atlassian for a week and install it, and then meet with the senior staff to communicate the importance of this and how they're going to be communicating with their employees. They're going to have a company meeting and contract a trainer for that 4-hour session where employees can become comfortable and familiar with the software. We'll then do some data migration, and each employee will be responsible for their own data and putting it into the system. That will take about a week. And finally, we're going to provide ongoing support for that. Looking at the second part of this, which is the Oculus Rift part of our recommendation, we're going to have 3 weeks where we are sourcing our vendors, and then we're going to sign a contract with them, have about 2 months of software development for this really to take shape, and then we're going to roll it out, and hopefully this will be well in place before phase 1 so that you can get customers on board before your phase 1 rollout. And finally, you'll continue marketing as you go along.
So given the set of recommendations that we've come up with for your group, it's really important to key in on some of the financial benefits that your firm will see in the next few years. We feel as though your company will be able to save approximately $40,000 in opportunity costs for employees, which we alluded to in the 5 days a week that are saved for the employees by having more efficient internal communication. The return on investment for the Oculus piece, which would cost approximately $600,000 in the first year, would be over 1,000% just in terms of the net income that's produced for your company through phase 1 in the first 2 years. And lastly, there's a $10 million benefit from focusing on young professionals, as was highlighted in our net present value calculation that we discussed earlier in the presentation. And some of the intangible benefits for your company really come down to the fact that your firm is able to achieve the goal of maximizing profit, which is something that you've outlined as one of the main criteria for your business. In addition, there's a 50% reduction in communication and facilitation time internally amongst employees by focusing on the young professionals and not looking at young families, which would allow your firm to potentially use that time to have more value-adding activities, such as marketing efforts to attract young professionals to your development pieces. And lastly, it would increase the foot traffic in the showrooms, which in the real estate industry is where you can cut sales commission costs and increase margins for your company to ensure that your bottom line increases beyond what it is today.
Thank you. And of course, there are always some risks. But don't worry, we've already thought of that. So, one of the greatest risks that we actually see is, what if the employees fail to adopt IT? They've done it the first time, they can do it a second time, they can continue to neglect it. However, we feel that the 4 pillars of change management is especially important here. By establishing a top tone and having the supervisors actually consistently asking the employees to comply, they're able to create the sense of urgency, create the tone at the top, and make sure that employees are actually following along with the general trend of what the rest of the company is doing. Another risk is that, what if Oculus Rift actually takes longer than we originally planned to implement? Well, this could also work as an advantage to you, in that you can choose to implement it in phase 2 and instead use the time prior to that to actually create a buzz around this up-and-coming technology, this very, very cool showroom that's surely going to appeal to the young professional crowd. And lastly, what if the phases do not sell out with the young professionals? Well, there are always more room to spend along with for marketing as well. As I alluded to in the beginning of the presentation, in Vancouver, there are not enough housing for young professionals. So we do see this as a low probability. So where have we taken you today? We have helped identify some of the problems that are currently facing your company and preventing your company to thrive. With this great opportunity of increased housing prices, our recommendation of focusing on young professionals, maintaining that, Keeping easy projects and having Atlassian hip chat and using training and incentives, it will allow you to focus on what you do best. You won't be getting that wake-up call on Monday morning. Instead, you will be helping connect people with their happy homes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Just wanted you maybe to expand a bit on the timing issues that we have around sort of the failure with the earlier deployment and then getting into the much larger bills that are coming and some of the urgency around some of those issues. If you could expand a little bit on the timing urgency and how you'd address that.
Well, it's definitely, you need to act on it right away, as you know you're starting building next month. So creating that sense of urgency and having that meeting as soon as possible in 2 weeks, that's the best way that we can do this. I know it is time sensitive, however, it's always better to do it now rather than to wait 6 months when you have all of these contracts and they're disorganized. It's always better to implement it now, and I know it's time sensitive, but we believe that now is the best time to act.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, you talk about blue-collar workers, which leads me to believe that you're talking about people outside of the company, because that's where the majority of them are. Is that correct or no? Or is this just internal?
This is just internal, however, you would have communication with the actual electricians or people working on the houses. However, from our understanding, these are still blue-collar workers because they've increased through the ranks and now are working for your firm. They are very comfortable with project management. They might have experience with building itself. So that was our understanding.
Okay. With that said then, if they're, in terms of collaboration with the outside, can you tell me in terms of what you consider for security around using something like HipChat and then externally people and their access to that?
Sure. So we do realize that text messages and emails are maybe an efficient and comfortable way to engage with external stakeholders. To get them to make an account on Atlassian HipChat just would not make sense. So if an employee were talking via email or text message, essentially during the training, we just want to reinforce and reiterate to put that message and document whatever key takeaways there were onto Atlassian HipChat on the respective thread or the respective chat room in regards to that topic. So if external communication were happening on another channel, it would still be documented on Atlassian HipChat.
So I really enjoyed the presentation, by the way. The coverage given to the change management piece is absolutely what we need. And the proposal of the Oculus Rift is definitely would be more towards to bring in the young professional. But I'm a bit confused when the comparison was made between young professionals and young families. So in our case, we're seeing, like, when the shop was open, we're attracting more of the young families than young professionals, and that was never the intention.
Yeah.
So how are you calculating your net present value, and that's probably the slide I
Sure.
referred to.
Sure.
So how are you making those assumptions and the 90,000, marketing cost that we have associated?
Sure.
I'm hearing that you are asking us to increase the marketing cost because in order for us to, so there's quite a few questions.
Sure.
But all in conjunction with each other.
Sure.
Could you please elaborate on that?
Sure, so I'll walk through the net present value calculation. We split the phases up into phase 1, 2, and 3, and we assume that 100 units per phase at approximately $380,000 per unit would get you your revenue of about $38 million. We're looking at the young professionals. The marketing cost is $645,000. That essentially is focused on the $45,000 that you were originally planning on spending, and then the $600,000 comes from Oculus Rift, $150,000 per hardware set for 2 hardware sets, and $300,000 to actually develop the software customized to what one of the rooms on your property would actually look like. The reason that the NPV is about half in the young family scenario is that we took the respective net incomes in each respective phase, discounted it at a rate of 5%. But before we did that, we actually deducted that by half because we were under the impression that you'll be losing about half the profit by focusing on young families.
So I guess my question in terms of Oculus Rift is, you talked about risk and mitigation. If it goes to phase 2, why would I spend $300,000 plus on Oculus Rift when I have a real showroom to show them rather than a virtual one?
Right, so firstly, it's the appeal of technology. Technology is the trend for young professional, and it speaks quality and high-end for the young professionals who you're actually targeting. So that's the first factor. And the second factor is that the showroom, even though it is built already, it doesn't show what it looks like, for example, on a higher floor. The Oculus Rift allows for the full experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.